The sky turns orange as sunset comes upon us. As the color seems to drain from the world, being consumed by the fog, the guide makes his appearance. Lou avoids eye contact with him.
It's almost time.
I nod and feel myself grow tense. We truly are about to return to those bridges. All of us wait in an uncomfortable silence until night falls. We silently stand as one, forming a vigil of sorts. Our remaining lanterns illuminate the dark, prepared for tonight's journey. And yet, the way forward does not appear. The bridges haven't risen from the depths. What? Is this normal? Does this happen? I glance to my side. The guide doesn't look at all pleased. The corners of his mouth have a harsh bend as he briefly loses himself to heavy thoughts.
We must go to the shore.
Okay. We must go to the place where the Nixis will be swarming in a second. He doesn't offer an explanation for why. Instead, he goes on without us. I follow after the guide, my forehead creasing with swelling worry. Behind me, I hear Bemelle's and Lou's unsure footsteps. The four of us press onto the shore. The dark waters lap at the edges of the sand, and as expected, the maze is still hidden beneath the surface. The guide grips his staff tighter, his knuckles turning ghostly white. He sucks in a breath of air, like he's about to speak, but he hesitates. We all stare at him expectantly. After a moment more, the guide is fed up with waiting.
The bridges are late. If they don't arrive as soon as darkness falls, there's no telling exactly how long it will be before they do.
So, they are late. What does that mean? Are they a living being? Like, I have so many questions still. Like, does the water level, like, rise and go down? I mean, normally the water level rises and retreats, but he is speaking about the bridges arriving, like the bridges would be moving, only arriving when the night falls, when the sun goes down. And for some reason they are late. Does that imply that the bridges are somehow alive? I'm still wondering who built them and are they being fixed and like what's going on with the bridges? I want to know. Bemelle's face immediately sours and he isn't able to stay silent about his feelings.
So we're going to waste our time standing idly by. There's hardly enough time to make the trip as it is.
Well, do you have a way to make the bridges appear, Bemelle? Lou doesn't say anything, opting to stare at the ground with an obscured expression.
Time is by far the least of our worries. On the bridges we are constantly moving, which makes it easier to avoid the prowlers. However, this island does not offer that luxury. We're trapped here.
My body goes rigid as his words sink in.
More importantly, the bridges are raised above the waters. Nixi have difficulties pulling themselves up onto the bridges. The soft sloping of the shore will allow far more prowlers to drag themselves towards us. Not all will be as dangerous as the ones we've encountered thus far. However, we could easily be overwhelmed.
A pit forms deep in my stomach. I stare at him aghast. I had no idea the situation was that dire. I glance from the waterline to the trees. what I'm looking for, I don't know. A sign of what might be to come, perhaps.
I wonder if those fires had anything to do with this.
Bemelle's words are biting as he wonders aloud. I wonder how big part of those bridges our guide torched last night. The guide answers Bemelle firmly, wanting to put an end to his speculation.
No. Whatever magic controlling the bridges is inconsistent. Humans haven't found a way to impact it. We can only do temporary physical damage to the boards.
So, okay, now we know that the bridges are controlled by some sort of magic, which affects them, but at least according to our guide, humans cannot impact it. And the damage we can do is temporary. So I guess the magic will fix the bridges? But who built the bridges in the first place? I'm so curious, I want to know more. Bemelle is still displeased.
Should we return to our original spot? We would have more protection there.
The guide closes his eyes and suddenly looks very worn down.
Staying in the center of the island is the safest option. However, there's the risk that we may not be able to reach the bridges when they do rise. Prowlers could have taken full control of the shore by then. Remaining here with our lanterns will ensure the prowlers cannot move freely.
My brows involuntarily knit together. I don't like the sound of taking additional risks in an area that is already so dangerous, but our options are thin.
I will not be kept on this island for another day, so the shore is where I will be. You may wait at the edge of the forest, or even at the center of the island if you fear being attacked. If the prowlers come between us and you fail to make it to the bridges, I will leave you behind.
Why am I not surprised? Bemelle spits hatefully under his breath.
Of course you would.
True, generosity is not something I would expect from the guide. But that is not the conversation we need to have at this moment. The guide has made his decision and we must make ours.
If you were staying by the shore, perhaps I could be positioned somewhat further back from you, and then the others could stay further back still. That would keep us safer, without having any major gaps of darkness between us and the shore. You could start a fire, seeing as neither of you have a lantern.
Good suggestion, Kikka.
Fine.
Settled on the matter, the three of us begin to move away from the guide. He pays little attention to us, instead silently fixing his eyes on the water. I take my place in the middle of the shore while Bemelle and Lou hover closer to the island's core on the line between dirt and sand. After getting a sense of where they are, I turn my gaze ahead. At first, I think I'm being fooled by the fog. There are several white dots playing around the edges of the water. Dark globes begin to surface and I see them for what they are. Eyes. So many white dribbling eyes, gleaming sharply against their pitch-black bodies as the Nixi bob up and down. Oh no. They surface and disappear in a loop, each time more sets of eyes and closer, surveying us more intently. Then they cackle. The sound is atrocious, gurgling, then turning high-pitched as they seem to take full stock of us. The lights in their eyes somehow seem brighter as the first of the Nixi dig their claws into the sand and begin dragging themselves up on the shore. I plant my feet firm. With the threat rising, I decide to take one last moment to check on the others. Bemelle is tending to a small flame. However, I don't see Lou with him. Immediately alarmed, I raise my voice to call for him.
Lou? I'm okay.
A bit of rustling comes from above. I'm at a loss over what's happening before I realize that Lou is speaking from up a tree. Before I can ask what he's doing, Lou continues.
I figured there's not much of a chance any Nixi will get a hold of me here. They won't climb.
His voice is light-hearted with an easy confidence. With a slight shake of his head, Bemelle chuckles at Lou.
Let's see if you'll get down from there as smoothly as you climbed up.
Don't worry about me.
He still sounds fully self-assured. I smile to myself. I'd like to believe that Lou will truly be safe from those predatory creatures this way. With the two of them doing as well as they can be, I cautiously back up to my original position. I return my full focus to the shore. As we feared, this is becoming a pressing situation. More prowlers rose from the waters while my attention was on those two. They've surrounded the guide on both sides. The only way to gain distance from them would be to delve further into the island. Yet the guide shows no signs of giving up his position. He remains where he is, resolving to keep all the monsters near him in his sight. I grow more unnerved the longer I watch this. The guide seemed impervious to the dangers of Sinnlos. This is the first case where I can't tell whether he will continue to be fine as always or not. It's a distressing notion. As they creep ever closer, I can't stay silent any longer.
Your safety is most important. Consider retreating.
What a Kikka thing to say. Consider retreating. He doesn't face me, but replies.
I cannot do that. Nixi recognize signs of weakness. Backing away will only increase the odds of them attacking.
I grip my lantern tighter as I swallow hard. What can I do? As if to answer my own question, a thought whispers into my mind, and I look down at the lantern in my hand. I could throw it. As long as I don't let it go too far down the shore, it doesn't seem plausible that a Nix could take it. But if I do lose the lantern, then I don't know. I can't act rashly here. But Guide has managed through every situation we've been through, as well as countless others we did not bear witness to. I resolved to continue with what we planned and keep my position. I don't know if that was the right decision to make. I have no fudging clue. I mean, it seems like he's following certain rules here. So if I go against those rules, I might endanger us all. I'm aware that I have gone against his rules already. We picked up Lou, he didn't want us to do that, but I don't want him to die either. I mean, as you might have been able to tell already, I'm not very fond of our guide, but I would prefer none of us dying. We already lost Margaret, so the situation seems really difficult. Let's see what happens next. I can't act rashly here. The guide has managed through every situation we've been through, as well as countless others we did not bear witness to. I resolve to continue with what we'd planned and keep my position. Without flinching, the guide keeps hold of our position on the waterline. I periodically switch between watching him, the others, and the rest of the shore. As I scan the forest, there's a stinging groan. Was that the guide? It can't be. I stand rigid in shock, a painful prickling sensation going down my back before whipping around to face the truth. He's crouched low on the ground, staring forcefully at a group of Nixi head on. There is a whole other group of monsters rapidly crawling back into the water.
Hey!
I step forward with a shout, but he puts out one hand to hold me. I do not go further. I and those creatures motionlessly watch for what he will do. His fingers curl tightly around the upper half of his staff. With great effort, he begins to rise to his unstable feet. The moment he's fully upright, the guide aggressively swings his lantern at the encroaching Nixi. He catches them completely off guard, and they scatter to rejoin the rest in the black depths. The guide crumples back into the sand unceremoniously. I can hear his ragged breaths as he regains his composure. He tugs at one side of his cloak, bringing it closer around himself. It covers up a dark growing stain creeping through his right pant leg. Even while collapsed, he seems compelled to hide his fragility. Wait a moment. Earlier when we were attacked by, I think, the very first Nixi, they were worried that it had scratched Kikka's leg. And we checked that leg, but the Nixi hadn't injured the skin, just the trousers. Is there some kind of like infection type of deal going on here? Like if they scratch you, you become ill or you turn into one of them? Or because if they did, it seems like one of them just managed to hurt our guide. Whether it's something else or whether it is blood, we yet don't know. It says dark growing stain, so I am assuming it's blood, but then it means that one of them scratched him and he might be infected. Which doesn't add to the safety of this journey at all. Oh, damn. We are in deep trouble right now. Deep trouble. Is that admirable or saddening? I do not know anymore. The guide roughly pulls himself back onto his feet and forces himself to remain standing. The rest of us must remain strong as well if we are to survive this night. Gripping my lantern, I watch over everything and everyone in sight vigilantly. After an untold period of time, the water begins to stir. There's an unusual gurgling, a sound I never thought I would be this relieved to hear. Slowly, creakily, the bridges make their nightly appearance. Oh, damn. Sinnlos is an overwhelmingly cruel environment. this island had felt like a safe haven such a short time ago, but that has been twisted to the point where I'm grateful for a chance to return to the maze. And we may not even reach that. More Nixi are breaching the water and wrenching themselves onto the sand. The guide signals to all of us.
We have to leave!
Thanks to his position on the shore, the guide is able to board the bridges without confrontation. For the rest of us, however, the Nixi begin to crowd the opening. It appears they want to get on themselves. We have desperately little time before we'll be cut off from the guide. I look to my lantern. Will this light alone be enough to cause them to disperse? Bemelle appears at my side, dragging Lou's arm in one hand and his sword in his other. Lou yanks himself free of Bemelle's grasp and doesn't seem very happy at the treatment.
Being taken into the water is the biggest threat with these creatures. While we're on the shore, we can keep enough distance to avoid it. I can help push them back.
I appreciate his confidence, but I'm still not certain his help will be worth the risk. 2 is more intimidating than just 1, and there are many prowlers lurking. However, physical wounds don't hurt them in the same way they do people. I could still use my lantern alone. That has been the one weapon we've wielded against them thus far. My mind goes over every point I can think of on a loop, but there isn't that kind of time to spare. I have to give an answer. Let's fight.
If you're going to fight, then I am as well. I will attach the lantern to my belt for now.
Bemelle grins and grips his sword firmly.
I'm ready for it.
Lou, stay behind. This needs to be done by us alone.
Lou will not like that. He doesn't verbally reply, however, the severity of our situation isn't lost on him. He falls back and waits for our signal. I latch the lantern to my leather belt and unsheath my sword. We approach the battle as the 2 of us have done in the past. The skin of the monsters falls against their bones as they shrink back from my light. Bemelle takes a wide swing at one nearby, which forces it back even further. I follow in suit, striking at the beasts near to me. Each arc of our swords opens the way a little more. I listen closely and feel confident that Lou hasn't drifted. I pray my instincts are right. It's far too dangerous to look away even momentarily with the Nixi so close. Our efforts bear fruit as a path to the bridges clears in front of my eyes. We waste not one moment sprinting towards the bridges. With the others near my side, I amble back into the maze. We don't stop until there is a considerable distance between us and the shore. It is there that we encounter the guide. Upon seeing his figure, I hide a sigh of relief. We haven't been left behind. Our arrival doesn't change the guide's empty expression. He doesn't say or do anything, instead allowing all of us to catch our breath. Bemelle starts to laugh incredulously through uneven breaths.
Such recklessness. I can hardly believe it worked.
Me too, Bemelle, me too. Lou looks as though his legs might fall out from underneath him.
Normally, I wouldn't ever say anyone on these bridges are lucky. But we are.
We treasure the moment of triumph for a little more before the guide ends his silence.
We need to start walking. We've already lost much time as it is.
Almost as soon as he finishes his statement, he stumbles, nearly falling back down. His hands slip down the shaft of his staff as he sinks to the ground. He gasps under his breath.
Are you all right? Is there anything we can do? I don't have much, but I could still clean and wrap it.
I take a few hurried steps closer. I reach my hands out towards him, which he curls away from like a barn cat. He turns his gaze up to me and shakes his head.
I tended to it myself when you were still on the shore.
Moments tick by as I stare at him, growing even more nervous. As horrible as his injury is, the larger situation at play is dire for all. It's a weight bearing down on each of us, threatening to bring the entire group to its knees, rather than only our lead. We can't stay here.
Are you able to walk?
He eyes his feet with gritted teeth and clenches his staff tighter.
Not like this.
A beat of quiet passes before he continues, his voice slightly ragged.
I have a way. It will be enough to get to the other side.
Okay. Shaking, he removes a hand from his staff and reaches into his cloak, searching for something. I have little other choice but to watch as he searches his pockets. The panic that we thought was past starts creeping back in. He retrieves a small vial with a viscous liquid inside, swishing it slightly as he holds it up. I peer at it curiously.
Drinking this will numb the pain. I'll be able to ignore that my leg is injured for the time being.
I guess that's a good thing since we are in such a dangerous place, but he will need someone to actually tend the wounds as soon as possible. I analyze the vial hesitantly. I'm pensive as I mull over the possible other effects it could have. Something that potent would be a miracle drug if there were no downsides, along with the positives.
Is that safe? It must cause drowsiness or have some kind of impact on you. Not to mention, pushing your leg so hard when it's in that state could permanently ruin it.
He regards me as his lip twists partway into a snarl.
My leg isn't broken. It will heal without issue once I am able to treat it. In order for that to happen, however, I need to live.
I flinch slightly. He wouldn't usually snap at such a question. The pain must be truly getting to him.
What about side effects? You didn't say what they were.
Bemelle steps in closer to the guide, his question harsh enough to be a demand. Bemelle's trust in the guide has steadily declined since the first night. with the way he's acting, I cannot ignore the sense that it may come to a head before the journey is over.